FOS TV is brought to you by the Lion's Den. The Den always has been and always will be about enjoying family and friends in an environment steeped in Happy Valley tradition. So come back to the Den, the perfect place to recall old memories while creating new ones.
Mark Brennan of Fight on State here with our weekly Bill O'Brien press conference wrap. This is the one we've been waiting for. Penn State getting ready to play Illinois. We know how much bad blood there is over Illinois. Coach Tim Beckman sending staff members here to recruit Nittany Lions right after the sanctions came down. So we expected a fired up Bill O'Brien and fired up players, and what do we get?
We got nothing like it. We got the company line of everyone's excited for Big Ten play, everyone's excited to open the Big Ten season at Illinois and get ready for a very good Big Ten team. So not the excitement and fireworks a lot of people were hoping for.
Yeah, as always, joined by Greg Pickel. I should have introduced you before jumping into that, but I know that's what people wanted to talk about. And seriously, I don't think we thought that they were going to go off on anything, and I think game week, they're probably dialed in, but I have to believe that in the back of their minds, they're pretty motivated for this one.
Yeah, I think body language is where you can see a lot of that in these guys. Their faces, their eyes, just the way they generally act. Even O'Brien, when they hear that question or get that question phrased or posed to them. So, yeah, I think even though their words said one thing, their body language said another, and I think it would be ridiculous to assume that what they're saying is face value in the fact that there's no motivation factor in there at all.
Okay, so we're not going to get that out of the players this week. We're not going to get out of Bill O'Brien, but again, I think both of us are in agreement that that will be a motivating factor. Some more important stuff to talk about, though. On the injury front, it sure seems like Penn State was really playing it safe with a lot of key players the last couple games against Navy and Temple. They were able to win both of those games relatively handily. Now they're going into the Big Ten, and some of their best players are going to be back.
Yeah, I think it's really important. He didn't touch on Donovan Smith today, but it does seem like he's okay. The guys he touched on, Bill Belton, he anticipates him being able to play this Saturday. Michael Zordich as well, a guy he said didn't practice yesterday, but he expects him to be back and ready to go. Pete Mazzaro is the one player he mentioned would not be able to play, but he said after, I believe it was the Navy game, that he'd be day-to-day for pretty much the rest of the season. So Pete Mazzaros is a guy that you just kind of watch out for. But overall, a lot of those guys he had mentioned, Derek Day, Michael Zordich we talked about, those guys are now back in action. And I think it was smart on the staff's part, knowing they may not necessarily have needed these guys to beat Temple and to beat Navy, that they got them healthy for Big Ten play.
Yeah, the good thing for Belton is they said that he practiced yesterday. Again, we always like to point out we're taping this on Tuesday, so that would have been Monday of game week. Last week when we were at practice, Bill Belton was not out there middle of the week. Now, he did dress, did do some warming up, but it was very limited what he did warming up. He caught some passes, returned some punts, didn't do any cutting. So he's coming back off that ankle injury. If he's back at practice full time, they have some decisions to make at running back. Bill O'Brien said that they have 5 guys who are in the mix, 5 guys who have all done a pretty good job this year. They have to narrow that down to 2 or 3, and it's going to be dictated by what they do in practice. So this is a big week of practice for several guys. You have to imagine Zordich is going to be in the mix there because he's emerged as, well, not emerged, he's been such a team leader, and I think he represents a lot of the good things that have gone on here at Penn State. But beyond that, to see how the rest of this shakes down is going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I think Bill Belton gets in the mix if he's healthy. I think you'd have a hard time leaving him someone that you made the starter initially because of his explosion and his ability to make plays. I think you have a hard time unless he has a really big setback this week not making him the starter. So then it comes down to Zach Zwinnick, Curtis Dukes, and Derek Day. Yeah. And that's where it comes down to at this point. And I guess the key is where is Derek Day's shoulder and where is Curtis Dukes' thigh when you talk about this stuff, and how much those guys are able to practice this week, whether they get expanded reps or less reps because of the injuries. One thing that Bill O'Brien pointed out was the fact that everyone starts different series as the number 1 back. They have game periods in practice, and they start different guys at different periods. So everyone seems to have a fair shake at this. It just depends who has the best week at practice, and I think we'll see maybe a little bit of who's doing well tomorrow.
Derek Day was one of the players who spoke with us today, and he said that he's fine. Suffered a separated shoulder, if I could spit that out, against Virginia. Did not play the last couple of weeks. It's good that he's getting back in the mix, because here's one of these walk-ons who I think has done a nice job, stuck with the program through all these years, finally getting the opportunity. It was difficult to see him get hurt against Virginia, but if he does come back, and Belton's back, and Zordich is in there, and you mentioned Dukes, and you mentioned Zwinnick, that's going to be one thing to really keep an eye on this week, folks, is who is getting in there at what point with the tailback situation. Much different story at quarterback. There is one quarterback, Matt McGloin, and I saw you tweeting during the press conference, Bill O'Brien once again talking very highly of Matt McGloin.
Very highly of Matt McGloin, and he has no interest in any sort of quarterback controversy, quarterback dilemma. He has no interest in even playing his backup if he doesn't have to, and I think that's important because you've seen this added confidence from Matt McGloin, this added poise from Matt McGloin. And it's not to say that it's only come from Bill O'Brien in the way he's handling things, but to think it's not a factor, I think, is absurd. I think there's definitely something there that Bill O'Brien has instilled in Matt McGloin with that confidence. And he talked to Matt McGloin about the way he's handled audibles and checks at the line of scrimmage. He says he's doing a very good job of that, getting them into the right plays. Again, we've talked about this at nauseum almost, the fact that Penn State's offense is complicated, but it's simple in the sense that the guy that's open is the guy who's getting it thrown to. But like O'Brien said today, they put a lot on the quarterback's plate by making sure he makes the right reads, and that's something McGloin's done very well so far.
Bill O'Brien talked a lot about the strength of the Illinois defensive front compared to Penn State's defensive front. I don't know. We're gonna wrap this real quick because we have some stuff here. We'll finish it off inside. Well, that was pretty interesting. A little bit of a rain shower, but guess what? We hustled up all our stuff, did not lose any of the valuable FOS equipment, and found a spot with these player posters. Everybody on the message board is talking about these players. There's still a lot of player posters here. Anyway, we were talking about the Penn State, about Bill O'Brien, talking about that Illinois defense, starting off with a great defensive line, but they didn't really show it that much last week, getting really hammered by Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, no, Illinois did not look very good in any aspect of the game last week. And O'Brien had mentioned he's good friends with defensive coordinator Tim Banks, who he coached with at Maryland. So I'm sure that those two have a history. But Illinois' defense up front, the front seven, can be good. Now, they weren't last week. They got torched. But like Brian had mentioned, Tim Banks is one of those coaches that runs a lot of intricate blitz schemes, and he likes to do a lot of different things and throw a lot of different things at this offensive line. Donovan Smith being back should be an added bonus to this Penn State offensive line, but at the same time, you have to prepare like you would for any other game against the team, even though that they weren't very good last week.
Yeah, this is the 15th time Penn State will be squaring off against Nathan Shieldhouse, the Illinois quarterback, who it only seems like he's been around forever, but he's had a tough go of it. One of the things that Bill O'Brien was asked about is, and some of the players, Mike Hull was there, about how similar this Illinois offense is to the Ohio offense, and the fact that very quick moving, throwing quick hitters, doing that sort of thing. And Shieldhouse also brings a little bit of a different dimension. He can pass the ball, he could run the ball. One of the things that O'Brien mentioned that stuck out to me is he thinks that defense, and I agree with him, has really improved over the last however many weeks. But I think you're going to see a little bit of a test this week. And as the Big Ten season goes along, the defense is going to have to get better and better. Forcing turnovers, doing some good things, but now you're in the Big Ten, you've got to really stiffen up.
Right, and this is what makes it tough to predict this game, because how will Ted Roof scheme to stop Nathan Shieldhouse and the running attack he presents? We've seen quarterbacks, and O'Brien even mentioned it, that Temple ran the quarterback power and sets out of the backfield, designed quarterback sneaks, draws, etc., that really got Chris Coyer out of the pocket, and Nathan Shieldhouse can do that, and maybe even to more of an extent, and that's something that we haven't really seen Ted Roof's defense be particularly great at stopping. They're very good at forcing turnovers. They're very stout against the traditional run. But when you get the quarterback in the action from the either shotgun or drop back and then run, they've struggled a little bit. So I think that's something, when you're taking this prediction into account, you have to account for, is the fact that Ted Roof really needs to figure out a way to get these guys contained in the pocket.
A lot of people were worried about Adrian Amos. Had to come off the field after a very hard collision. Looked like his helmet was screwed up. I don't think a lot of people realized that he was back in on the very next play. I mean, he missed one play, then he came right back in. O'Brien said today that he's fine. So that's good news. I mean, that's your best defensive back, in my view, back there. A guy who's able to play some safety, some corner. It looks like outside of Massaro, they're going to be a very healthy defense, which is good. He didn't really address too much of special teams today. That's probably one thing we should have asked a little bit more about. Anything else jump out at you?
No, special teams-wise, he did talk about Jesse Della Valle and how he matriculated and matured into the punt returning role at the Virginia game. But otherwise, no, not a whole lot of special teams questions. Things seem to be smoothed over, so to speak, with the Sam Ficken matter after the way he kicked against Temple. But no, a pretty run-of-the-mill press conference. I think the biggest thing in terms of Illinois is the fact that they're ready for Big Ten play and not ready to go after Tim Beckman and the rest of that staff that was recruiting here in State College.
Yeah, again, nobody wants to talk about that, but to me, that's going to be one of the themes. When they go out there, you could bet that this team, Mike Motti, all those guys, are going to be very motivated. motivated. It's pretty funny how this is like a hub of activity. I don't know if you could hear some of the vehicles behind us. A little bit of a scoop. They were out there doing some serious work on the turf here. I saw during the game, we're at Beaver Stadium, obviously. They were doing some patchwork and stuff, and they're doing a lot of work out there. So I think they're a little bit nervous. I'm not sure what's up with that field. That's something we'll probably have to follow up on. But hey, this is the first time we've had a split between indoor, outdoor. You took your shades off your head for the indoor portion. Right. I would like to see that. But we're going to wrap it up right here. Greg Pickel, Mark Brennan, Fight on State. You know the drill. We'll be here next week. Hope you will be too.